it's one of the craziest propositions of all time. You take a guy who just had a boxing match that looks like a sparring match with a 58-year-old Mike Tyson, and then you're going to fight one of the absolute scariest knockout artists in the heavyweight division. Maybe we should watch the Francis Ngannou fight so you could see. Let's watch that real quick, just so you can see what Anthony Joshua is capable if he's fighting someone that's not in his league. Okay, look, Usyk beat him, and he beat him twice, and Andy Ruiz caught him in the first fight and dropped him and stopped him. It was spectacular. Andy Ruiz is super fucking talented. Usyk is perhaps the greatest
The
ever.
host of The Wade Concept explains that for Jake Paul, getting knocked out by a single punch from Anthony Joshua is far safer than taking repeated shots over 8 rounds. The logic is straightforward. Sustained punishment can cause injuries that last long after fight. Even though Joshua will be wearing smaller 10-ounce gloves, a one-punch knockout, while dramatic reduces long-term harm by avoiding cumulative trauma. The host emphasizes that this changes the perspective of the fight. Despite the exhibition style, rules the danger for Paul is real. The smaller gloves are intended to enhance the spectacle and appeal for viewers, but they also reduce padding, increasing the likelihood of knockouts. Joshua's power is well documented, and even with technical adjustments, the vast difference in strength, skill, and experience means every punch carries serious consequences.
There really is only one outcome that can hurt Jake in this scenario, and that's that he gets viciously knocked out. Or he gets beat up really bad for 8 rounds and then viciously knocked out. I saw Nikisa talking on Ariel Helwani's show today about this, about like how it's not necessarily something they're worried about that Jake gets knocked out, because he's not afraid of the one-punch knockout as much as he's afraid of like Jake getting beat up for 8 rounds badly and it, causing some real cognitive damage. And there is science behind the fact that the more repeated head trauma is the more dangerous thing about pro boxing, because those gloves, you can get hit, you get 8 to 10 seconds to stand, and you can repeat it 2-3 times in the same fight, just absorbing punch after punch. So in the totality of Jake getting like knocked out cold, is that the worst thing possible for his health? I mean, who knows, dude? You could have a freaking brain aneurysm when you get hit off one shot from a guy like AJ. Again, knock on wood, you don't want to see any of that happen. If his career ends because AJ hurts him badly, then yes. But if it's a knockout where Jake is able to then continue fighting, people will still watch. It may not be as big as the AJ fight, but he still has an opportunity to make money in boxing. Again, the only way it wouldn't be the case is if Jake got like permanently injured from this fight, which is part of the reason that they take this fight, is because Jake doesn't really have anything to lose here outside of, again, the bodily harm. You fight a guy like Tommy Fury again, which I want to see, I think is more competitive, but doesn't bring the eyes that AJ does. So again, this is the entertainment business, and these Netflix fights are made for a massive audience. But you lose to Tommy Fury again, even by decision, that deflates Jake more than a knockout from Anthony Joshua. A loss to KSI deflates Jake more than a loss to Anthony Joshua. This is a perfect, even if Jake would have gotten just schooled by Gervonta Davis, it would have deflated him more than a knockout, I think. Yeah, it's a lot of risk, a lot of reward, but as far as your marketability, as long as you don't get permanent...
Now, Kissa Badarin explains the reasoning behind choosing Joshua as Jake Paul's opponent. Since the fight is being documented for Netflix, the organizers needed a matchup with maximum visual and narrative impact. They evaluated fighter profiles, media appeal, and audience expectations. Anthony Joshua fit the criteria perfectly. As a globally recognized former world champion, he brings star power and credibility, making the event highly marketable. His presence elevates the stakes and creates a storyline that appeals to viewers and promotional partners. Netflix's coverage further amplifies every stage of the preparation and the fight itself.
And, Jake Paul being Jake Paul, he wanted to focus on the biggest, baddest names possible. That included Terrence Crawford. That included Ryan Garcia. That included Tommy Fury. That included Anthony Joshua. And we probably had, 30 or 40 names that we kind of reviewed. And I will say at least 12 or 13 names that agreed to do the fight. Some within the 2-week period, actually. But from a Netflix perspective, they were very keen on Joshua. They were interested on Crawford. They were interested in Ryan Garcia as potential opponents for Jake Paul. They were interested in Tommy Fury at some level as well. And the one that Jake gravitated towards was Anthony Joshua. Once it became clear Ryan couldn't do the fight as well. Ryan was also something that he was interested in doing. And the deal came together mostly because Jake mentioned this as of March of this year, right? That's the first time he was on a podcast and said, I think I can beat Anthony Joshua. Everyone laughed. At the time, Eddie Hearn said this is another, media attention seeking moment for Jake Paul. I made it clear then to Eddie and to the media, Jake was serious and we wanted to do it in 2026. We had further conversations with Matchroom in July of this year with the understanding that if Jake got through Tank Davis, and even though that was an exhibition, it was very much structured to be a real fight in every way, shape, and form, then we would look to make Jake versus Joshua in 2026. So that gave us a head start in terms of trying to come to an agreement with Matchroom and AJ, and we were able to get it done.
I just want to ask about a couple of those names that you mentioned. Garcia's interesting because a day or so later, Oscar De La Hoya said he's a DAZN fighter. This ain't happening. And of course, we know there's no bigger DAZN name.
Ryan Garcia discusses the potentially life-changing consequences for Jake Paul if he loses. He warns that Joshua's power should not be underestimated and that a defeat could affect Paul physically, reputationally, and professionally. Garcia notes that this fight represents an enormous challenge with real risks attached. Proper training, preparation, and awareness are essential if Paul hopes to handle the danger Joshua presents inside the ring.
I think that this has been a misstep from Jake. I think he wanted to make his partners at Netflix a little too happy, and he's gonna walk into it. But look it, he loses to AJ. Where does he go from here? Who does he fight? You gonna go back down to 135?
The problem is not that he loses to AJ. The problem is the way he's gonna lose to AJ might be life changing.
Right.
So that's the real issue.
It could be life changing in many ways, right? Physically.
Yeah. Yeah.
See what he did in Nagano. It's like, but then again, if he gets knocked out, he gets knocked out.
Frank Martin acknowledges that while the fight promises substantial financial reward, remains a daunting challenge for Jake Paul. Money does not erase the risk involved, and Martin believes Paul should have carefully considered the dangers before accepting the bout. He stresses that this is not merely a money fight, the stakes are real. Paul is facing a seasoned, powerful opponent whose high-level boxing experience cannot be matched by hype or celebrity appeal. The financial incentive is large, but the physical and reputational risks are equally significant.
Consider Jake now, I wouldn't consider him like a YouTube fighter no more. I feel like he put in the time. He gotten better throughout all his fights. He done got better throughout all those fights, But it's still when you fighting fighters who actually done it for their whole life, it's a little different. If that fight happened, it'll be a good money fight. It'll be a good money fight. But that's a tough task for, Jake going to get that big ass heavyweight AJ. I know AJ personally, so that's a tough task.
Johnny Nelson comments that this fight could potentially mark the end of Jake Paul's active boxing career if he gets knocked out. Paul has become a major source of revenue for fighters like Joshua, often offering lucrative deals to secure matchups. Nelson adds that conspiracy theories have emerged claiming Paul might not be able to secure similar fights in the future due to the physical toll and public reaction that could follow a brutal defeat. This bout is pivotal for Paul's future, representing both a major financial opportunity and a moment of extreme personal risk that could redefine the trajectory of his career.
For AJ, I'm stuck in between because nobody on this green earth would actually turn down 50, 60 million to fight Jake Paul. And people that don't like this will probably watch it because they want to see Jake Paul getting knocked out. So what's it say about AJ and what's it say about Jake Paul? I think I was thinking upside down. For AJ, I thought, Mama's cashing out. He's cashing out because he's going down this mimic line. But I thought, in reality, is he? Realistically, he's thinking, you know what? This big mouth YouTuber stroke boxer has the cheek to call me out. I'd be pissed off at that, if I'm honest with you. I'd be upset if I was AJ, thinking, that's disrespect, man. You think you can deal with me? But he didn't. AJ was jovial and he commended Jake Paul's business acumen, saying, we've sat down, the deal's been done. But still, it just leaves an odd taste in your mouth. So as long as AJ gets the job done, and I mean gets the job done, shows his world-class pedigree, and wipes this boy out, then everybody's happy. But how does it enhance his career? The only way it enhances his career is financially. That's it. No other way. There's no props from beating Jake Paul, apart from saying, thank God you shut him up. For Jake Paul now, I got to give this boy props because he now has our attention and the whole world is talking about